Guten Abend. Sorry, but ich spreche nicht Deutsch, but if I close my eyes for a while, I can figure out that I am in front of you and be with you, even though it is with a slight décalage horaire. I'm sorry, my English is not that good either. And I think the first thing I want to say is to say thank you. And I have a lot of thank you to say, since it starts with my piano teacher when I was a child, who gave me so much, with whom I discover this wonder, which is classical music, with which I have been fed. And then I made another step to the meeting with Pierre Schaeffer and Pierre-Henri, the musique concrète, and discovering a new way of doing music, or different techniques which with which I could get rid of the serialism, post-serialism, dodecaphonism, which was quite interesting intellectually, but which never gave me a real feeling of, you know, when everything is going, when music just going into the body. And so I had 3 big periods in my life after. It has been the feedback, but before that I have also thank you to say to James Tinney and all the musicians I met in the early 60s in New York. It was at that time a tremendous period over there. Every night there were very interesting things happening in any loft. True loft, nothing to do with the actual loft. The show was just starting to become a place where every night they were very interesting with dance, like Yvonne Rainier, like I met Phil Corner, Malcolm Gomstein, of course, John Cage, David Tudor. I'm sorry, but I couldn't name all the people to whom I am very grateful for what I have learned from them, for all the all the support they give to me. And then my first, so the period of the feedback was the period, you see, when I worked with Pierre-Henri, when I came back to Paris, where I was his assistant. So that plugged me again in the concrete music somehow, in all this technique of, yes, if I say cutting, you don't cut now anything, you do it with this kind of screen. But at that time, everything has to be cut, glue, and that was a very good opportunity for me. But it is there where I discover the wonderful power of the feedback, whether the Larsen coming from this incident in between loudspeaker and the microphone, where if you keep on the artificial line the right distance, you can slowly having the sound moving and changing. And Pierre-Henri did in Le Voyage a part which is called Fluide et mobilité dans Larsen. So this, I was inspired by that when I did that myself. And this kind of feedback are somehow on sustained tone, rather, moving sustained tone. And of course, other feedback, I like the word in English because both are taken in the same pack, with a 2-tape recorder in a re-injection, where there have more a tendency of doing things by beats, pulse, and all the game of that. So that gave me two main parts in a vocabulary which I wanted to explore for what it was. I mean, I never had, I didn't want to apply to these sounds any kind of preconception coming from what I had learned. 2 times in my life, I just decide, so forget everything, and just listen to that. Try to check if there is something with which we could collaborate, say something, you know, like we will be doing. Ludger, I'm sorry. You see, I will give you your time, but let me go just for 2 minutes more. Sorry. And so here I start this so-called feedback period. Go ahead like that. Here I start to have some support, but mainly with American musicians. And here I have a full list of wonderful people in the United States, wonderful musicians. Since James Tinney was been the first I've met, to David Berman, Bob Ashley, going through with Chatham, and also Steve Reich, and at the time he was still working with
the tape face?
No. Steve Reich and Phil Glass.
Okay.
Yes, I knew them at the time they were still working together. And Annie Lockwood, and I'm sorry for Pauline Oliveros. I can visualize all of them and send them a lot of thanks, because due to them, I could follow my way, because as you know, I was rather underground, very much underground, you know, and I always wanted to have what I finish, what I achieve, at least being pushed out of my place at least one time, in order to listen in a different way. It's just like when you put, when a painter put a painting in a gallery, it gives another meaning from the studio, in both ways. And here it was about the same for me. So then I come to the period of the work with me, with my love, my earpiece synthesizer. It's a big love in my life. And here also we had to spend a while of, you know, courting each other, learning to get accustomed one to the other. And this has long for about more than 30 years, I think, until the 2000. And the last period, the wonderful period with whom I am still living now, all these wonderful musicians who give me their incredible talents to do a kind of music I have been dreaming of, and who I could never completely achieve with the electronical means. I've been as far as I could with electronical means, but the end was always a compromise in between what I wanted to do and what I could decently achieve. I used to say that we should have very big dreams, and I am very good at that. Because anyway, when you want to go to the realization, you have to give up a lot of things for practicality. So now, Ludger, because I will have other thanks to say, but it will be for the end. Here I stop the thanks and head to the end. Maybe you have some questions that you want to
Yes, I have many questions, and you started already to explain many things. My question is, what is speed for you? Because you are one of the few composers who work with very slow evolution.
Oh, yes. But this is very much necessary in what I wanted to do, because like I was telling you just before all this start, I was very much interested by the fact of, let's say, roughly a complex sounds, and slowly pulling like thread some of the components of these sounds by several types of modulation, as you know, amplitude, ring modulation, etc., etc., etc. And this has to be made with a synthesizer, like you do with that, I guess, very slowly, because if you don't move too fast apart, wow, everything disappears. So it has by nature to be slow, and it goes very well with because in classical music, I have always been very fond of all the slow movement, and quite often when I was listening some pieces, I stopped the final scherzo because I just wanted to be in the andante, what was before. So both was getting along together, and so yes, that answers to your question.
Yes.
Okay.
And another is following. When you work with the evolution of the material, do you parameterize? Do you think in numbers? Or do you think with the ear?
Oh, only the ear.
Only the ear.
Oh, yes.
And you couple the ear with the.
The pot was where sometime I was moving them no more than it would be with an air, Mm-hmm. No, it was very, 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 very slow movement, and only the ear and stopping some time. This is why at the beginning it's difficult. It's always moving, but at the beginning it's very difficult to move, because when one of the spots I had about when excusez-moi, là vous allez avoir à couper. When the dispatching was made, I had to check. Of course, I didn't change the basic tuning, if I may say so, with the oscillators. It was made for the whole piece, because everything changed. But that was all this modulation that and was about I would say 30 to 40 parameters that I could change on the board of my ARP. But I have to check the distance where it could just go off. And in fact, every time I am changing once I knew that I was changing the rate. This is what I had always to be very careful. This is why also I had to record that, because it was impossible to do 2 times the same thing. And if something wrong happened once, so okay, leave it. And this is why all my electronic pieces have always been made on tape, because that was the time of the tape.
Mm-hmm. It sounds like this concept in Buddhism of the now. Be careful with the now. Try to be conscious of what is happening now. It's exactly what you described.
I never think of that, but I think you are perfectly right. Yes, mm-hmm. Yes, perfectly. I accept it. I take it. I borrow it from you, and I could have. No, that's absolutely right. It's just to be completely, fully in where we are like we are now. Mm-hmm. No, what are we doing? We are together. That's nice, and there are all the people who I see from far. Hello, and we are just talking like 2 friends, and in the now. You're right.
Mm-hmm. Another question would be: did you have an idea before you start?
Oh yes. Oh yes, always. always. And in fact, it was sometime for a very long time there before starting to do something out of it. And I think the longest is actually the piece on which we are working with all the musicians. Because I like this period for me now is the most important, you know. What is done is done. But what we are doing now is just the fact. And it's a piece which has been somehow, I wouldn't say conceived, but like a kind of flash. In the 70s, 73, something like that, I think. I had a concert at the Karlsruhe, and I've been to the Museum of Natural History in LA. And in a room, I could see a long stripe all along above the ceiling, on which were all, not all, but the known electric magnetic waves from the sun to the earth, to the smallest, and in between, of course, this very small part from about 50 to 12,000 hertz that this has changed as sounds, the 300,000, and I was completely back on that, you know, fascinated. And in fact, now this is the basic, the basic score, if I may say so, of my work with the musician. And it is quite easy because now what I am doing and with this wonderful musician is made first out of solo, and through the solo after we made duet, trio, quartet, etc., etc., etc. There are now 27 solo, and if a mathematician made all the combination which could be made out of that, no way, that will be definitely an unachieved piece, impossible to, and I love that idea also of something which just goes its life, its way. And so this is the longest idea, because we start this piece about 10 years ago, you see. And, but it was there somehow. Like the first pieces which has been made with musicians, the Naljola, which has been made with Charles Curtis, Bruno Martinez, Carol Robinson. That was also an idea which I have, but which it was difficult to make alone. I mean, the idea included the fact of, but always, and all the ideas are somehow contained in the titles. But I don't give them necessarily, because I don't want people being trying to listen, so are we there, on there, or what she says, so this is for me. After I can tell it if, when I'm asked question, but and it can take time. And the first step after is to make you know. So you know, you are a musician, you know how it works. Like these people, like any people who are creative. I was saying a minute ago that I love the way, I love to see professional working, being at work, because it is always the same process, creativity. When it is there, it pushes you and you do it whatsoever. Something it goes wrong and you haven't. And when it works, what a wonder. Mm-hmm. And I use also to say that it comes from very, very, very big dreaming. And you should, I'm very good at that. Very, very big dream like this, because since in the producing, we always have, for practicality, to give up a lot of things. At least if you have a big dream, it remains something. But if you have a small dreams, there is not that much which remains. You are also a good dreamer, I am sure.
I hope so.
Yes, can tell.
And what was the reaction to the people to the durations of your piece? Because you have many very long pieces created.
Oh,
What
so you mean with the electronical works?
Yes.
That depends on the idea which is behind. This is why I always know about what will be the range. At the beginning, after a while, I was very much involved with longer pieces. The first pieces I did with electronics, but were at least 20-25 minutes. I couldn't say anything else than that. I am, as you can tell, I am very talkative. when you'll be tired, you just take a Kalashnikov. But you know, it gives a length. It gives a length if it is a complex idea. It takes. What example could I give you for that now? Let's say, yes, one for sure, like the Jason Miller piece made out from the life of the yogi, Tibetan yogi of the 11th century, Milarepa, as a 10-man period in his life. And so to make a kind of a suggestion, no, that's not the right word, evocation of his life, I had to go through these 10 paths. 10 minutes being the less I could go, so. Due to this, the crossfade, I could shorten down somehow. But if I would have made 10 by 10, that would have made 100 minutes, which was quite long. And here I succeed in making it in 85 minutes only. And this is due to the fact that, as you know, all the pieces are just in one row, you know. Mm-hmm. The silence is the base of all music. From the silence, there is something which starts to shiver slowly, and by shivering, it becomes sounds. And after sounds is here, over the silence, it inhabits the silence somehow. They are always discussing together silence, and the construction of my works have always been the same, you know, fade in, fade out, crossfade in the middle. Very simple, so simple as that.
And what was the reaction of the audience to these long pieces?
Strangely enough, there was three kinds of audience. There were about 10% who just leave after 10 minutes. I understand everything, nothing happened, what is that? Okay. On the other range, there were quite often 10 minutes who really was getting into it. And now I know that there are young people, and this is what is the most, what I am not that proud in life, but I am proud of that when young people refers to the influence that my music has on their own. Wow, thank you. This is really something important. And in the middle, so all the range, from the one who said, oh, it's very boring, but at least we can sleep, or those who said, oh yes, maybe there is a little thing here and there. So, but it's just roughly what was my feeling about that. Now I don't know exactly how it works, because I cannot even go to my own concert, you know. I am resident. I am, you know, yes, I should be a resident now, and because other than that, I will be not only through that with you, but I'll be directly with you and happy to be with you. But here I have at least a smile of these three kind people who are here with me. But I have forgotten your question. Did I answer to that, or do I have been everywhere like fun?
You answered quite well. You only missed the last group of people. You said there were people leaving quickly, and then there were people kind of getting it. Yeah. And what is the third group? There
were really, and since the very beginning, people who were very touched. I always, and I could see that with my first concert in New York, Cryptos, which was on the 6th of April, 1971. Can't forget the first. I'm not good. I'm not that good. I had a good memory, but now it goes. But this one, and where Paul Jenkins gave me after the day after, bring me this painting there, and with words very nice, and people were very touched. You see, and nicely. I mean, like a real understanding. And this, of course, was very moving. And this, I had always at least this 10% also. I have 10% on the opposite, and all the rest in between. And the most surprising was not sometime, it happened once, someone leaving at 75 minutes for a piece of 80 minutes. So I think that, or maybe he had a train to take also, I don't know. But if you had been courageous enough to listen 80 minutes, it was surprising. But you know, and this is how I knew also that my two master, if I may say so, Pierre Schaeffer, mainly Pierre Schaeffer, but Pierre-Henri, with whom I have been learning a lot, because it was with him I have been working the most, ate my music, you know. They never got it, never. Pierre-Henri got mad, completely insulting the first time he had listened to my music. And Pierre Schaeffer, since, you know, I was never in the room, since the she work was on tape, as much as possible, closely, equilibrium as much as I could. I didn't have to be here in the middle, you know, just to show off. What I wanted to do was a kind of surrounding, immersive. We call that immersive now. This is a new word. By that time, I have heard now this word more often, where, you know, people were just like in the body of an instrument, you know, if you could have been in the body of an instrument. Once I had made the rehearsal, checking with the loudspeaker how to turn them and turning around to have this kind of effect. I was behind in another room, but of course I have an ear and an eye, and I could see once Pierre Schaeffer who came and left after 10 minutes. I said, okay. He never told me more, but I said that was okay.
Yeah, was it not difficult as a woman in this man's world?
That time, you know, at that time I had already enough friends, and like I told you, not for very good friends, very good musicians. We were very appreciative of my music, and so they are supportive. And I had also some anonymous, like Ken from Texas. Hello, Ken from Texas, who I have never met. We came once at the gallery of my son in New York, where he finds some little poster of a concert I had, and asked if by chance they know me. And he said, tell her, I can't even repeat, but I have always come from Texas. I have always also been working for you. Thank you. and So, but as you know, it's very recent for me to have, and this is why I'm very, very proud of that. And here, this is the last, but not the least of my thanks, is to the jury, to everyone, like you being there, like this big, great institution of the Giga Hertz, to be the. Oh, I lose the words. There is no words for that. I am very proud and very, very thankful.
Yeah, we are happy that you can honor your work. This is the honor for your life work. What you have done as a composer.
That's another thank you. So now I think it's the time to say Dankeschön. Dankeschön. Merci beaucoup, thank you, grazie mille, but all which means this deep Dankeschön. Hello.
If you compare the things you have learned with the evolution of time with the synthesizer, with what you do with musician today, is it something similar or is it something completely different?
I used to say that I have been making the same music all my life, and if you put the first thing to the last one, it is maybe a little change, but not that much. And in fact, with the musician, and I told them for the first time when we achieved the third piece of the Naljonla, that for the first time I could hear the music I always wanted to know, but for which everything before has been a kind of compromise, because at the end, there is a time where we should achieve and say that's okay. And that pushed always me to say maybe next time, but now we have the same basic principle of working with a concept. There is a basic concept of this scale of wavelengths. And then to bring it to something more perceptible, bon, allez, en français ça va aussi bien, perceptible physically is the ocean, because the ocean also has several kind of waves, and here at least we can rest into it, but here, wow! And also the law of the resource of Occam in our work, that a lot of architects have used it. Mies van der Rohe was a fan of the Occam's resource, the simplest the best. When you have problem, never add something in order to rather check what you can give up, and it works. And then we have, after individually, some kind of image, because every piece of this Occam Ocean theory, it's a theory. Now we have about, I don't know, from 50 to 60 pieces, I don't remember, is unique and is made for just one instrumentist or one group of instrumentists, and of course it is made orally or verbally, because the main research with the sounds is what I would say the nature of the sounds in its three ways. Inspired from the Greek, when they discover the proportion of the fifths of the octave, all that, when they did that with tetrachord, all that, and living, and all that comes a natural way of the component of the sounds, and the acoustical instruments for that are absolutely the best, you know. We can do that. You can do that with your instrument. I could do that with my synthesizer. But when you have natural harmonics, you can't compare them. That's that one. They are just natural, in pure intonation. And playing, let's say, like here I have two diapasons, one American and one European. They are slightly different. Well, the diapason is slightly different. There are a lot of little small beats, pulse, subharmonic, very rare, but incredibly moving, because slow pulse, totally material, aerial. And like I told you, this is what we are looking for. And it's impossible to because to write the fundamental is necessary to produce the sounds, but the best is when the fundamental after a few minutes is completely forgotten, and when start to act and live all this partial, you know, of this richness of the sounds, like a singer, when Pavarotti, when giving all the range, the director, the conductor just slowed down his beats, the musician was just giving, and they wait until they could go back. And like I told you, I am a big dreamer. And what is wonderful now for me is that, because you'll have tomorrow, I know, a great surprise, a creation of a trio with Carol Robinson, Yannick Guédon, and Bertrand Goguet. Wow, and what you had before also, but you know, that one will be the premiere that you had tomorrow. And, you know, I miss for all the other, you know, the 50 of other musicians, I love you also.
You mentioned musician. Before you had your instruments, and you were in a discussion with the instrument, with the synthesizer, with the ARP synthesizer. And now you are in discussion with a player, that's a person, that's a different communication.
Yes, and you know, I have not been looking at that. The last piece I did with my synthesizer, which is L'île resonante, was supposed to be a new theory, because I have had problem with my synthesizer with the dispatching chords. But since I left the keyboard at New York, because I didn't want to be tempted in case of problems, you know, and I use only the matrix switches for the dispatching of the bottom, but the one on the top, which was for the keyboard. So, and I had it was somehow brand new with a new dispatching. So I did L'île resonante, and then Casper Toplitz asked me to do a piece with him. I didn't know exactly, and I said, we'll try, we'll remain friends. And of course I have immediately been taken by the tremendous joys of sharing, doing music with another musician, because I have been working so much now alone in my life with my synthesizer. His phantom is still there, you see, and here is still my studio, even now it's another story. And that My cats was quite nice, but there was not real assistant, but they were good listener. They were good listener, but to share music, and now to share music with like on the last week when these three musicians came here and I had the premiere here privately. So avant-première, let's say, because the premiere will be tomorrow for you. Mm-hmm. And so it's just the pleasure of my life now. They give me the best moment in my life.
Mm-hmm. But they don't have a knob like a synthesizer, so you communicate in a different way with them?
But of course, I have not any more knobs to talk about. But on the other hand, now if I would still have my synthesizer physically, I couldn't anymore work with it, because the synthesizer was not conceived to be work only on knobs. And in fact, when I bring it back, I told to the Tonus Incorporation, who was making it, suggest another ergonomic way to do it, rather in a plane, like the Serge modular has been made. Because here, you can sit more easily. Because here, I had to work that way, so very straight. Mm-hmm. And that was a big chance. That's because when now it would be impossible. I couldn't. And now they come here and that's wonderful. That's wonderful.
I remember listening to Trilogie de Mort, de la Mort.
Oui.
And I must say I was very touched by the intense ambient or situation the sound creates. Mm-hmm. It was extreme. It was extremely dense and strong. Were you aware of doing this? What came to your mind while doing this piece?
Oh, so that Trilogie de la Mort, this is another story, because the first piece came out was directly inspired by the Bardo Todol, the book of the death of the Tibetan, and of the six intermediary space since the birth to the rebirth, if I may say so. The three on this life, the three in between death and the coming back. And I had for that the six stances, which are at the end of the book, for which each stance starts by the word Kema. And this is why it is named Kema. And for some reason, my Tibetan master had given me some instruction for that, and I wanted to do something. And strangely enough, but not that strange, because it happens already to Mahler, to others. My son died in a car accident about a few months after I achieved it. Since it has been premiere in San Francisco in December 58, and the car accident of my son was on February after. At that moment, I had started what happened after to be the second part, Kailasha, which was inspired from an imaginary pilgrimage around the Mount Kailash, which is in the west of Tibet, a very sacred mountain, which is said to be on earth, Mont Sumeru, which is a great song. I am not, I can't said that many things about Buddhism. I am a beginner, and a little beginner since now almost 50 years, but I am still a beginner. I wanted to make this pilgrimage because I was too old to do it. It's very difficult physically. And a friend of mine had made it, and I made a lot of photographs, and all this part was covered with this photograph. And I started that, and of course I did that all the year after. And in fact, the pilgrimage was difficult, but it was also difficult internally because, you know, I had to cross this problem. And in fact, this has been a piece which has been very difficult for me to listen, because somehow, for the first time, I asked to some of my friends, like Tom Johnson, to listen to it before. I didn't want if I should erase it that way or if I could keep it. So apparently it has not been erased.
Fortunately, yeah.
And then my master, Venerable Pao Rinpoche, left. And I have been in Kathmandu for the cremation, and here it was something very special because there was a kind of, how could say so. We are made of spirituality. We are made of intuition also. Even thought in our civilization, we give a big privilege to ratio, to intellect and all that. But anyway, spirituality is there, intuition is there, and even thought it was saddening somehow because this master was very important for me in my life. There were also this feeling of a kind of transcendency of death, which is universal. This is why on this piece Kume, I borrow also from the European tradition, like the Épître aux Corinthiens, like some painting and thunder of some Passion by Bach. There are four, I don't remember, but there are 4 sentences which come from Europe, which are associated to that. It was somehow bound. And in fact, this third piece, Kume, has been achieved at the CCMX in Nice, where for the first time I had the use with Luc Martinez of one of your screen, which of course makes it much more easier, you know, than all the long mixing that I had to do. And when I explained what it was to Michel Rodolphe, he said, "But that's a trilogy," and I kept the name. But somehow he's the godfather of the trilogy as such, because for me, I was not expecting after the Kema to do another piece which were taken very close with the living of very close death, and the third one also, and so it has. But everything I've been doing has always its story. See, this one is probably the one which is the most involved also with physical, mental experience. And this is why, you know, I don't have to hide until it doesn't work if I try to hide. He's very little, the singer. For that.
So passion is something very important for your music. Passion. Passionate. You are very passionate.
Oh my God. Yes. Very much, yes.
So,
but you know, like everyone, I am sure they love their work. You love your work. If we don't love our work, we would rather, you know, I don't know, travel, do something else, you know. Yeah. The people the most interested in life are the ones who make their love with passion. The great artisan who made in every métier. How do you say métier?
Yeah,
in
métier.
Métier, ça va? D'accord, vous débrouillerez avec ça.
And passion is, I would say, is one, as I see it in your work, passion is one important thing. The other one we spoke about already is simplicity.
Yes.
And is there anything in the process of composition where you put away all unnecessary elements and stay to the simplest, to the center of the...
I have no idea. That's the first time that, and I think that everything is completely melded, you know. Mm-hmm. The same way I used to say that I have always been involved somehow with the spiritual side of our component, our psychical component. And music, of course, and this has always been the two rails on which the train of my life has been running, you know. Mm-hmm. What was the third you asked me? The passion?
Simplicity was the one.
Yes. I think all that goes together, you know. The same way we need the two legs to walk and so all the arms. So we are not a single. We are very complex, and that is part of our complexity. And in this complexity, maybe the proportion of what you said is the most important, most likely. This is the only answer, actually. When I will, within about 1 month, I could maybe answer to you because I would have think about it. But just like that, just like, yes, most likely, yes.
Yeah, it's somehow simplicity and complexity are very close to each other.
Simplicity and complexity. Oh, complexity. In a very absurd way sometimes, because I know that with this new means here, where I am completely lost, you know, when I have a problem, I am always looking to all the range, and my grandson or my son-in-law arrive, show me one thing I'm just to push, and I say, okay. Why doing simple when you can do it? There's a lot of complicity. And when I had problem with my equipment, I did the same. I was, you know, looking step by step to realize that one of my grandchildren have just moved a little thing which was just in front of my eyes. So, in that sense, you are right. Complexity grows, but complexity is not the best of it.
I was thinking when you have, for example, your works and you work with a beating and with a small evolution,
yes.
There is complexity in this simple information.
Here you are right. You found the key. You know, I didn't realize that. But you know, this is strange because I start to think about my work after people like you ask me questions about it. So here I had to say, but I am a really barbarian, you know, completely wild, and I do think that way because it goes that way, and somehow it's also. It's a second part of my life, because when I was young, with my generation, we had to be very sharp intellectually. But after a while, I decided to put that aside. I don't know. The same way that I decide when starting with electronic sounds that they had their own languages, and I didn't want to bring them into the classical languages. The same way that all the European music, which now is all around the world, came from the natural law of natural acoustic, except that for our music, we had to make this little temperament to shorten down a little bit the fifths. I don't know. I think that shepherd in Greece, when they are cutting their pipe of bamboo in several lengths, sometimes they hear something more special to cut. And in fact, we realized that it was natural acoustic. I remember the first time I saw an oscilloscope, and when I saw the eighths and the fifths, wow, and the sevenths, that was another story. That gives sense also. That was the simplicity of fifths. So it's very simple, and it sounds immediately right to the ear. But of course, if it will be only that, we'll have to add a little bit of our fantasy also, and of our complexity also. So you are right, complexity. But I still have to think about it, you know. I'm not sure that way directly. Complexity and simplicity, yes.
You mentioned several times Schäfer and Henri, and what was it? What did they give you?
Oh my God, Pierre Schäfer mainly. Pierre Schäfer just saved me, if I may say so, of the intellectual but boring 12 tones. Because here, where I was not trying, I could make it in terms of tetrachord, but hexachord at least, in order to avoid a too big dissonance. That has never been my cup of tea. But even so, with my two there was always a part when going up vertically, horizontally, something which did not work. I did that like now I make a Sudoku or a crosswords, you see. But I found that interesting, but let's say that I prefer to read a score by Webern, which are like little treasure. They are so well made. Berg is more dramatic, Schoenberg more theoretical, and the only thing which was a distraction for me, I was at that time living in Nice and near the airport, where the airplanes, and at that time there were not that many, and there was also with Hélice, you know, and they are very nice, interesting sounds, you know, and I could. The ear is our best filter, you see. You can filter, avoid the noise of the street because you are concentrated. Maybe that will have it, you know, but not us. And one morning I heard on the radio Pierre Schäfer and l'Étude au chemin de fer. This has been my chemin de Damas, like Paul meeting the Christ, you see, except that it was Pierre Schäfer who was not the Christ, but that really gave me the freedom all of a sudden that, of course, another music can be made, and out of the water running in a pipe, of everything in life, everything can become music, depending, first of all, on the way we listen to it, and also on the way that after we are treated. And here, I have a sample I have never given, that is a premiere, of one of my very best friends and my only student, Laetitia Sonami. We made, that was about 20, 30 years ago. And she had made a piece very nice, and I remember when I was in San Francisco, and we have been on jeté, which were going in the middle of the bay, and I said to her, I said, "Oh, you know, that is like your piece," and she said to me, "Yes, but it has to be organized and filtered somehow." Like when listening to the aircraft, I was selecting, I was making some kind of I remember once in between Nice and Corsica, it was such a wonderful flight that I made a symphony all along, you know, complete, but of course I was not choosing, you know, all that. But at least I had read John Cage, Silence, but no, maybe not. Maybe I have not read. I think that after that I have been reading John Cage. With I consider John Cage as our father for all the musicians of our. And you, maybe not you. You are too young now. But for my generation, it's. For my generation, I can consider. For you, it could be maybe your grandfather.
I heard premieres of John Cage's piece. I've heard premieres of John Cage's piece.
Wow.
Like Etude Australes, for example, in Witten. Yeah.
Wow.
With him being present, yeah.
Wow. Wow. Yeah. Yes. So. We all owe a lot to John Cage, who really. So Pierre Schaeffer and John Cage gave freedom, but freedom doesn't mean to do anything. It means to think differently. To give the opportunity to think music in different terms, and discovering here, that makes the links with the feedback, discovering this feedback and the special way of behavior, if I may say so, were already a language, you know, but to listen, what do they say? What can I hear from them? How could I answer to them? And that was different, but absolutely not bringing them into. It was just like with my synthesizer. I bringing it in on a keyboard, even thought if it's so rich, I prefer to do what I have. Done, you know, like that.
Yeah. Imagined. There is something, you mentioned Pauline Olivieros. You mentioned Pauline Olivieros.
Oh, she was a wonderful friend.
And I think what you describe, there is, because I have done an interview with her as well.
You know,
there's
I think we were very, very close friends. Even so, we didn't meet that much, except in '98 when I have been for a master class at Mills College, and when we met was Colleen, there was something obvious, you know, in between us. We didn't have even to talk. We never talked that much about music, except that I remember when at the end of this day in where I could create the sound labyrinth, because when I had been invited there, I said, my God, what are you expected from me? I will not go back to my Dubois and for the new techniques, you are much more up than me. I have nothing to teach. And Chris Brown told me the only thing what could have said, no, we have T-shirt for that. We have T-shirt for that. But what are you expected from me? To share your experience. And that was the right answer. And this year where I decided to do there the Labyrinth Sonore, which was almost 3D since the 70s, you know, and has never been created. And we did that with the students. And you know, the teacher, like I have been in the different classes, the teacher were coming. And when it has been created, at the end, all the teachers, Pauline, Maggie Payne, David Abel, Willie Winans, all the teachers, we were I had about 27 students and were about 50, you know, because everyone wanted to participate. And the first, well, of course, Pauline was there. And so I always quote her because deep listening is the only way to listen, you know. If you, and somehow, you know, it's the only way to really catch the fullness of music, because since I have been working alone, like I told you, before to make sure of a piece, I had several ways of listening, like putting the tape and going and there, and if something, yes, I knew that I should keep that. I had several. The worst was the technical one. My God. Everything could have been erased. So, but there is the one where you just let go. And deep listening is just to be catch completely, to be one with the sounds, have the sound outside and inside, and be one with the sounds. Is what she called deep listening, and I think I practice this without knowing the words, because I discovered that she wrote beautifully with that. I have been to one of her class when I was in MIDS about deep listening, but yes, she was a very close friend. No.
And one question is, did you do all your pieces in stereo, or did you do multi-channel works with immersive or?
No, it's what I would call a full stereo. They are not exactly the same, but they are not that much different either. And I never ever use stereo effect in the concert. Like I told you at the beginning of our talk, since all the piece was on tape, there was no way of me being there, you know, to pretend to add something. Because believe me, when I had my synthesizer, at that time I had something like 50 years less, you know, yes, about. And I would surely have a big success, but I didn't want this kind of success. Of the red and green light. So there was the music, and the audience was alone, the music in the room, and I was in a room, or even on a placard next. I didn't want, but there were never stereo effects, never. I was taking care of. By turning or bending the loudspeaker, of having, so-called now immersive way of listening. I am very glad of that, because that's quite recent that I have heard this word, immersive, and immersive listening.
And did you do multi-channel works with 6-channel or more channel?
No. The only piece I have been on a 4-channel has been Arcesis, but it was due to the fact that I was working in Iowa University studio, and they have this instrument. But after that, I put that on a 1/4 inch, and all my pieces has been made on a 1/4 inch with only 2 tapes, which are slightly different, of course, because they could have answer from anyway. I always my installation have always made me cross. Let's say in this room, one side that way, the other one that way, and it was a big room with several loudspeakers. They were also left, right, like to have all over the thing. This is why I could never play with an acousmonium. The only time I've been in front of an acousmonium, that was for Arcesis. So, in fact, that was another piece. I had to work at that and make another piece. So now what I did, I realized that there were 2 beautiful JB Lansing. I took them. Then, since it was in front, I pushed on the button, and I came to sit with everyone in the room, just because there were nowhere to pretend that I was doing something, so I was doing nothing. Or maybe inside I knew that sometime I could have to bring a little bit more of dynamics. Yes, I have a tricks. I give it now. I have a big trick because the tape recorder have always a is and the front. So when I started the piece, I cut off everything above 10,000 hertz. Now, of course, I bring it back slowly with the music, and at the end, I did the opposite. This was the trick. That was my only tricks. And depending on the acoustical answer of the room, there were also in some part where I had to add a little bit more of dynamics or a little bit less, but that was the only correction I had to make. So no way to be in the room and pretend that I was doing something. Everything that I've been doing was here, I have done, and believe me, that was quite demanding. I was very, very demanding on my work. This is why it took so much time to do a piece. Yeah. But
now it's shorter to compose because now it is faster to compose with the instruments.
Oh, that's a wonder.
Yeah.
That's a pure wonder, really, because let's say starting by the solo, it's a way to. I consider the special unity which is constituted by the instrument and the instrumentist, and there are never 2 instrumentists with the same instrument who have the same relationship, and this is what has to be raised up. Secondly, for the tuning. Always when they came here was depending on the weather of the room, and how sensitive are these instruments. So take the A, which will be the best for you today, here and now. Still you're here and now, you see. Because there are so many A, I asked to Silvia Tarozzi, who is a violinist, a specialist in Baroque music, how many A's they have, and she answered to me, "Oh, much too much." So okay, there is a range in which are the different A. So this I don't mind. I don't mind either to tune the instrument, and of course it's. I have done that once with harp, but it was a complete nightmare. And of course, even with the violin, only Charles Curtis can play the piece by Lamont. 3 hours playing, wow. That's quite an experience, you know, for him. And I don't mind, because since all the side effects, all the partial are anyway in just intonation. You cannot catch an harmonic above and say, so you should be a little bit lower. No, impossible. You cannot do that. And so that was the first step. And after, through this general shape of the piece, where I told you roughly the cosmogonic ocean and the physical ocean, and then after choosing a personal image. Related to water, of course, since it was supposed to go to the ocean, and the ocean is not only the water would go above, would go back into earth and all that. And it could be something personal from them that they express, like a special fountains and the like, or we could discuss, or I could suggest something, which I do more often with a trio or quatuor, that could be a river, it could be, and of course the piece will not be the same if the musician starts by some drop bubbling on the sand of a little horn in the mountain, and that thing, you know, that if you start by a fall, or you know, and this is what I call their score, because all this part, because it has it is not only the bubble can have to go at least to the torrent, you know. You say torrent? No. So when the water starts to be more because only the bubble would be yes, after a while of bubble, you know, but even when it is a river, it's very interesting, because we take the river from its source, and the Ebre, by example, is not the same as the Elbe, no, the Elbe for your river. Ebre in Spain, and like the river Rhine.
Yeah.
Rhine. Yeah. It is the one which is in Karlsruhe.
Yeah.
The Rhine. Okay. They all have their story if you take them from their source too, and that gives all the development of the piece. It gives a feeling of something, and here it's just like I used to do. We don't give necessarily what is our theme, because we don't want, we decide so, we don't want people saying also, where are we now, are we, let's say for the Rhône, are we in the Lac Léman, or are we still, no, for every people now, they make their own way, their own travel, you know. But this is, and I do insist, and this is very easy, because it's really like a score, because when they have not been playing their piece for a while, they forgot, as we can do, you know, when you leave, when there is a piece that you have not been playing for a long time, you should go back to the score for a while, and if this happens, we go back to the score. So what is the story? So this is our story, and immediately everything take place again. And I don't know where I go about your question. Maybe I have been so far from your question that I have forgotten what you were asking.
Yeah, but you said something else, so it was fitting quite well in.
What?
Well, you were like a river. You were saying something else, so I forgot where we started.